My radio spit one word, lockdown, and the front office tried to laugh it off like it was another drill they forgot to email. I stood in the clinic doorway with a kid's ice pack in my hand and listened for the follow-up tone. None came, just screaming down the main hall, then the hard sound of a door getting kicked. Not a slam, a kick like whoever was meant to split the frame. I heard the secretary on the intercom start a sentence in that bright fake voice, and then the line died mid-word. That's when kids started flooding toward me. Not in an orderly line like training videos, just a spill of bodies. One limped with his shoe half off. One had blood running down from his eyebrow into his eye. A girl grabbed the wall as she ran, like her legs didn't trust her. They didn't explain anything. They didn't even look at me like I was help. They just ran like animals that smelled something behind them. I pointed at the bathroom and shoved them in. I killed the clinic lights. I pulled the door shut and dragged the filing cabinet in front of it until my shoulders lit up and my hands slipped on the metal. Someone in the office always says the cabinets are too heavy when we clean. Turns out rage makes you strong. From the bathroom, I heard a kid start to sob, and I snapped low to stop because noise was the only thing I could control. The intercom clicked. A pre-recorded calm voice started talking about procedures like the building was trying to keep its dignity. Then the recording stuttered, skipped, and cut. After a beat, I heard someone breathing into the mic, real breathing. Close and steady, like they put their mouth right on it. Not panic breathing, not running, just present, like they wanted us to hear they were still there. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. I crawled under the counter so my phone glow wouldn't leak and tried to text 911 because I couldn't risk a call. My hands shook so bad I kept hitting the wrong keys. I deleted words, retyped them, deleted again. I texted school lockdown intruder, kicking doors, clinic OFF, main hall kids hiding, and then the stupid phone asked if I meant including instead of intruder. I wanted to smash it. I didn't. I hit send and prayed somebody on the other end took it seriously. Footsteps came up the hall. Slow, heavy, not a kid sprint. They stopped right outside my door. I heard the handle test once, gentle, like someone checking if a fridge is latched. The lock clicked. The door held. My lungs forgot how to work. I grabbed the nearest thing with weight, an antiseptic bottle, and held it up like that was a plan. I felt stupid and furious at the same time. The handle tested again and then stopped. For a few seconds, there was nothing but that distant intercom hiss and the bathroom breathing behind me. Then the footsteps moved on. Not hurried, just moved on like my room was a choice they could make later. In the bathroom, a kid whispered that his mom wasn't answering and asked if he was going to die. I didn't do the nurse voice. I didn't do the soft lie. I told him to stay low and shut the fuck up so we could hear the hallway. He went quiet, and I hated myself for needing him quiet more than I needed him okay. Someone ran past outside, shoes slapping tile, and a teacher's voice cracked somewhere down the corridor, yelling for a door to open. It wasn't chatty yelling. It was the kind that turns into begging without the person realizing. Then another kick landed farther away. A crash followed, like a chair or a body hitting something hard. The intercom clicked again, and for half a second, I expected that breathing to come back. Instead, the principal came on, trying to sound calm, and he was failing so bad it made me angry. He said police were en route and to stay in place. Right after he finished, the breathing came back anyway, 2 seconds close like a finger pressed on the mic button. Then silence. It felt personal, like somebody was checking whether we were still listening. My phone buzzed with 911 asking for the address, like the word school wasn't enough. I typed it back with my teeth clenched. Another message asked if anyone was injured. I looked at the bloody eyebrow kid in the bathroom and thought, yeah, but that's not the injury that matters right now. I told them we were hidden, multiple kids, unknown suspect location. Minutes stretched wrong. My legs cramped from crouching. My mouth went dry. The clinic smelled like alcohol wipes and old plastic. The kids in the bathroom shifted and sniffed, and every tiny sound made my skin crawl. I whispered another warning, meaner than I meant, and heard my own voice shake. Then the sound in the building changed. It wasn't safer, just different. I heard adult running, boots and heavier steps, moving together, controlled. Radios chirped with clipped voices that weren't ours. A loud command echoed, then a thud like someone hit the stairs hard. After that, the hall went weirdly quiet, like the whole school held its breath at once. The principal came back on and said the situation was resolved. That word made me see red. Resolved doesn't mean okay. It just means somebody stopped moving. They kept us locked down while police cleared rooms. I didn't move the cabinet until I heard the knock pattern and an officer announcing himself. Even then I hesitated because my brain kept replaying that breathing into the intercom. I cracked the door just enough to see uniforms. My hand shook so bad the antiseptic bottle almost fell. The officer's eyes scanned past me like he was counting exits. He asked how many kids. I told him. He told me to bring them out. When I opened the bathroom, the kids blinked like they'd been underwater. Their faces were flat in that shocked way, like the crying got used up. The limping kid almost fell, and I grabbed his elbow. His skin felt cold and sweaty. The hallway looked normal in the worst way. Scattered papers, a dropped pencil case, doors shut tight, fluorescent lights still buzzing like nothing happened. But every adult I saw had the same hard stare, like they'd seen something they weren't going to describe in a staff meeting. Later they said the guy got caught in a stairwell. That's the story they used because it sounds clean. They said it was contained. They said there would be support resources. The front office lady joked, shaky, that we could all use a drink. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to hit her. I didn't do either. I just went back to the clinic and stared at the light switch. Turning the lights on felt like admitting it was over. Leaving them off felt like hiding was still doing something. I cleaned the blood off the sink and threw away the melted ice pack like it was evidence. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The worst part was how fast people tried to rewrite it into a neat lesson. Within an hour, they had us herded into the library for a brief update. The assistant principal kept saying protocol like it was a prayer. He asked who had blocked doors. I raised my hand because I'm not a liar. He made a face and said we're not supposed to obstruct egress. I stared at him and said, real flat, someone tested my handle. If I hadn't moved that cabinet, you'd be filling out different paperwork. He tried to talk over me, talking about safety compliance, and I cut him off and told him to go stand in my doorway and listen to a lock get tested and then lecture me. That shut him up, but not because he agreed, because he didn't want the room to hear it. A teacher from the science hall started crying and then got mad, yelling that the office should have locked the outer doors the first time a kid propped one. The secretary snapped back that she can't watch every entrance, and the room turned into a bunch of adults pointing at each other like kids. Meanwhile, the actual kids were lined up outside with cops walking them out single file like prisoners, and parents were screaming in the parking lot. Not at the guy, at us like we personally invited him in. I had a mother grab my arm and demand her son right now, nails digging in, and I had to pry her fingers off because I didn't even know which classroom he was in. Later, when paramedics finally checked the eyebrow kid, he kept saying he didn't feel pain, like his body had just turned the dial off. The officer who cleared my room told me I did good, and then, under his breath, said the guy had tried to get into the office to make an announcement. My throat went tight because that explained the breathing, and it made it worse. That night, the district sent out an email about a disturbance and thanked the staff for professionalism. The next morning, I found a sticky note on my desk that said, "Remember self-care," with a smiley face, and I crumpled it so hard it left creases in my palm. Nobody asked about the intercom. When I brought it up, the tech guy shrugged and said maybe it was feedback, maybe the mic was left open, maybe the system glitched. Fuck that. I know what feedback sounds like. I know what an open mic sounds like too. This was breathing, close, calm, on purpose. They caught the guy in a stairwell. Everyone called it resolved. I still keep the clinic lights off when I'm alone because the sound of that mic breathing into the intercom never left my head. The principal met me at the boiler room door and said the gas smell was probably a dead mouse. I walked past him and followed the odor because I like living. I'm the maintenance guy they call when something weird happens, which usually means everyone already tried to pretend it's nothing and keep the bell schedule moving. The smell sat under the normal school stink: bleach, fryer grease, sweaty hoodies, those lemon wipes teachers love. This one cut through: rotten eggs and metal. He followed me like I needed supervision, not because he was scared, but because he didn't want me making decisions without him. He kept talking about parents, lawsuits, and not causing a scene. He said dead mouse, twice like repetition makes it true. I didn't argue. I just walked toward the cafeteria wing where the air got thicker and my meter started chirping. The meter screamed the second I stepped into the hall behind the cafeteria. The screen jumped so fast, it looked like it was glitching. I told him to pull the fire alarm. He said it would cause panic and asked me to verify first. I wanted to hit him with my clipboard. He wanted me to do the dangerous part quietly so he could say nobody overreacted. That was the whole game. He tried to plant himself in front of me, like his title could block gas. I moved around him and walked the corridor with the meter out in front of me. It spiked with every step. A lunch aide pushed a cart past us and wrinkled her nose and kept going, because in a school you learn to swallow problems and keep moving. The utility closet by the loading door was half open, jammed with mops and boxes and broken junk. My meter went nuts right at the threshold. I opened the utility closet and found the flex line kinked and leaking, hissing like a tire. Not a dramatic roar, just that steady hiss that says it's been there a while. The line was bent hard behind a stack of paper towel cases, crushed into an angle it wasn't built for. I could see scrape marks on the floor where somebody shoved those boxes in and never looked back. I shoved the boxes aside, got my hand in, found the shutoff, and cranked it until my wrist burned. The valve fought me like it hadn't been touched in years. My glove slipped on grime, and for a second, I thought about the spark from static, how stupid it would be to die in a fucking supply closet because an administrator wanted a quiet day. The hiss died. The smell didn't. It stayed heavy, like it had soaked into the walls already. The principal switched instantly from dead mouse to C, handled, and started talking about not needing to call anyone, not needing to disrupt lunch, not needing to create liability. He actually told me, low voice, that I should keep it between us until he figured out messaging. I told him liability looks like a kid's funeral. He went stiff and offended, like I'd cursed at a fundraiser. He kept repeating, panic, like panic was worse than fire. I told him the meter already panicked for us, and it wasn't wrong. He started naming excuses. Maybe it was a one-time leak. Maybe it was just a little. Maybe the smell was leftover. I pointed at the meter and asked him what number would make him care. He didn't answer. He just stared at the hallway like he could will the problem away. While he argued, I walked away because if I stood there, he'd keep me talking until someone lit a match in a bathroom. I went to the emergency exit by the gym because places that ignore one safety problem usually ignore 10. The gym hallway was loud with sneakers and whistles, and it made my stomach twist because all that noise was happening inside a building with gas sitting in it. I grabbed the exit bar and shoved. Nothing. Shoved again. Still nothing. I crouched and looked down the side of the door and saw metal. Then I checked the emergency exit by the gym and found it chained shut. Chain. Padlock. A big stupid for security sign taped over the bar. I yanked it until the chain bit my palms. The chain left little half-moon cuts in my skin, and I could already feel that sting you get when sweat hits it. The sign was fresh printer paper, taped up neat, like someone knew it was wrong and wanted a blessing for it. I just stood there for a beat thinking about drills, how they always send the gym classes out this way, how kids don't think when alarms go off, they just follow the crowd. I marched back and told him. He didn't even look surprised. He looked annoyed, like I'd found a mess he didn't want to explain. He tried to justify it. Kids sneaking out, safety, security, district guidance. He said the word security like it was a spell that made everything okay. I asked him if smoke checks ID. He told me to watch my tone. I I told him to watch his exits. He told me, straight up, not to touch the chain. He said he'd handle it later. Later was his favorite word. Later is how people die. I went to the custodial cage and grabbed bolt cutters. When I came back, he put a hand out to stop me and started talking about authorization and discipline. He said if I cut that chain, I'd be the one responsible for any incident. I told him the incident was already sitting in the air behind the cafeteria. I shoved past him and set the cutters on the chain. It took both hands and my weight. The metal creaked, then snapped. The chain dropped hard on the tile. He flinched like I'd broken his jaw. He started hissing my name, telling me I was done in this district, telling me I didn't understand how schools work. I pushed the bar just enough to trip the door alarm. It wailed. I did it on purpose because noise is evidence and silence is how this kind of shit gets buried. Teachers poured into the hall pissed off, thinking it was a prank. One grabbed my sleeve like I was a kid. Another pointed at me and shouted like I'd broken the door for fun. A coach came out red-faced and started barking at everyone to line up, then turned on me because the alarm messed up his class. The principal tried to do that calm voice takeover, shrinking everything down to a manageable issue. I said gas leak, loud enough that heads turned. His jaw tightened like the word itself was a stain. Kids started coughing. Not all of them, but enough that you could feel it spreading. A kid near the gym gagged and vomited right on the tile. That's what avoid panic looks like. A nurse showed up with a paper towel roll and a face that said she'd seen too much from adults who don't listen. The principal finally yanked the main fire alarm like he was doing me a favor. Strobes flashed. The siren filled the building. Teachers herded kids toward exits, and I watched them funnel toward the gym door, the one that had been chained, because that's the route they practice. If I hadn't cut it, they would have piled up against a locked door. Outside, the principal worked the crowd and kept calling it minor and out of caution. He wouldn't say gas. He wouldn't say chain. He just kept his hands clean. Fire showed up late and came in with fans and meters and that hard look people get when they've seen what a little leak can do. They found my shutoff, checked the line, ran readings down the hall, and started airing the place out. One of them saw the cut chain and asked who did it. The principal tried to answer without answering. I told the firefighter exactly what I found. The firefighter's face went flat and he wrote something down without looking at the principal. They called it a close one, then left us standing there with a building full of stale gas and a principal full of rage. Afterward, the principal cornered me and went quiet rage, telling me I embarrassed him, telling me I created chaos, telling me I should have come to him before taking drastic action. I told him I did come to him, and he told me not to pull an alarm because it might look bad. He said I was insubordinate. I said he was more scared of emails than explosions. He threatened to report me. I told him to spell my name right. Next day, the district emailed staff and said, minor maintenance issue, handled. No mention of the chain. No mention of the leak. I watched teachers read it and shrug, because what else do you do when the people above you rewrite reality? I wrote my report anyway. Times, readings, the kinked line, the shutoff, the chained exit, the sign, and I took pictures of my cut palms next to that stupid for security paper before anyone could pretend it never existed. I sent it to the people whose job titles include safety. I got one reply that said thanks and nothing else. The principal avoided me, then started acting friendly again like the whole thing was a misunderstanding, like we'd had a little disagreement about procedure. I drove home with gas stink in my hair and kept thinking. They didn't ignore danger by accident. They ignored it because they thought the building could swallow a few kids and still keep its reputation. I watched a kid climb on my bus with his hood cinched tight and his backpack held in front of him like a shield. Every seat behind him went quiet, then phones came out, and the whispering started like flies. I've driven that route long enough to feel when the air changes. Kids don't go quiet for no reason. I checked the mirror and caught it, screens angled low, little camera dots aimed at him, laughs that never got loud. He didn't look for friends. He picked a seat a few rows up, turned his hood away from the mirror, and hugged that backpack to his chest like it could stop hands. It wasn't bullying you could point to. No punches. No slurs shouted loud enough for an adult to hear. Just screams. Just laughs that cut off when I looked in the mirror. Whenever I faced forward, it started again like a switch, and everything stayed just clean enough for adults to pretend it was nothing. At the next stop, two boys stood before the doors, even finished opening, and blocked the aisle like they owned it. They did it casual like, oops, crowded, but they waited for him to stand. One had a big drink with the lid half cocked. When the kid tried to squeeze by without touching anyone, the boy leaned in and stumbled, dumping it straight down his front. The sound was nasty, sticky liquid soaking cloth, dripping onto the rubber floor. The smell hit next, sugary and sour. The kid froze. He didn't wipe it. He didn't swear. He didn't even flinch away. He just sat there, soaked, while they filmed his face like they were collecting proof he was human. One hovered with a phone inches from him, trying to pull a reaction out of him like it was a prize. I stomped the brake and threw the hazards on. Heads jerked. Somebody complained. I stood up fast enough to smack my knee on the fare box. I told them to sit the fuck down. They played dumb instantly. One said he didn't do anything, voice sweet, eyes wide. I told him I watched him do it. He smirked like he wanted me to grab him so he could flip the whole thing onto me. I made them come to the front and give me their names. They laughed in my face and tried to shove past me anyway. I planted myself in the aisle and didn't move. One called me a bitch under his breath. I told him to say it louder. He didn't, but he kept that grin that says you can't do shit. I wrote them up anyway. Stop time, seat row, what they did, and the fact they were recording. I made them stand there while I wrote, so the whole bus had to look at them instead of him. They kept their phones low, trying to catch my voice, my face, anything they could turn into content. I told them if I saw a camera up again, I'd park the bus and call their parents on speaker right there. That finally landed. Not shame, consequences. I moved them to the front seats where I could see their hands. They started muttering about me, powering out. I didn't answer. The kid stayed still, dripping, staring at the floor like he'd left his body. His hands kept working the zipper pull on the backpack, up and down like he needed something to do besides fall apart. I kept expecting him to snap, to yell, to do anything that would make this real enough for adults. He didn't. He just shrank. That's what scared me most, how practiced it looked. At the school, the two boys tried to bolt. I held them a second longer and snapped a photo of their student IDs with my phone. They swore at me, puffed up, acted like I was the one breaking rules. I let them go and drove on, shaking. After my run, I walked into the school with the write-ups and the time stamp for my camera. I didn't call ahead because calling ahead gives people time to dodge. The front desk tried to send me away. I said no and waited until the vice principal came out with his coffee and his calm voice. I told him what happened. I told him I had it on video. I told him those boys were filming and the kid looked terrified. He saw like I'd brought him a paperwork problem. Then he said, "Stay in your lane." He followed it with the same garbage I always hear. Kids record everything. It's hard to prove intent. Don't escalate drama. He said intent like the drink teleported onto the kid by accident. That line made me want to spit. I told him intent is two boys blocking an aisle while 3 phones are already up. He asked me if I was trained to judge student behavior. I told him I'm trained to keep kids safe on my bus, and this wasn't safe. He warned me about liability and route disruption, like the real emergency was my brakes. He told me to submit it through the proper channel and let them handle it. Proper channel, like cruelty waits its turn. I went back to the depot and filed it the way they make you file everything, clean little boxes that turn real life into student conflict. I attached the clip. I hit send. I already knew what would happen. Nothing, or not enough, or too late. The next morning, the kid didn't show. I noticed right away because his seat was empty and the bus was loud again, like everybody could breathe. A couple kids glanced at the empty spot and looked almost excited, like they were checking if the show got canceled. Halfway through the run, dispatch patched a parent through. His mom was crying so hard, I had to pull over to understand her. She asked if he got on. She asked it like the answer was life or death. I told her no. I hated the word coming out of my mouth. She said he left the house like normal. Hood up, backpack on, texted on my way, then nothing. Then she asked if there was trouble on the bus, if anyone was bothering him, if I saw anything. I told her there was trouble yesterday, and I stepped in and I reported it. I could hear her breathing change, like rage, trying to crawl over grief. She said the school told her he was fine, that he was just sensitive, and she sounded like she wanted to drive through that office wall. She asked me if there were videos, if kids were posting him. I told her yes, and saying yes out loud made me feel filthy. She started apologizing to me, like it was her fault for calling, like she was bothering people, and I had to cut her off and tell her she wasn't bothering anybody. As soon as I got back, I pulled my camera. Dispatch tried to tell me to finish the run first. I told them if they wanted to write me up for checking a missing kid, they could. I rewound to his stop. I saw him step toward the curb like he was about to board, then stop dead. A car rolled slow beside him with its lights off. Not parked, rolling, matching him. In the passenger window, a phone screen glowed. Someone inside held it up, facing him, and even through the grainy video, I could see what was on it. His own face, so could he, that stunned look from yesterday, frozen on a screen like a warning. He backed away from the curb and walked the other direction, fast. The car followed. It didn't honk. It didn't call out. It just stayed with him, quiet and steady, like it knew he couldn't outrun what they already had. I called the school and got bounced around until I forced my way to admin. They talked like this was separate, like it was coincidence. I told them it wasn't. I told them they had names yesterday, and they shrugged. Then I called the police myself. When they showed up, they watched the clip and did that tired nod people do when they don't want to feel anything. One said it was probably teenagers messing around. I felt heat climb on my neck. I told him a kid is missing and you're calling it messing around. He told me to watch my tone. I told him to watch the fucking video again. They took the footage and left after asking me the same useless questions. Plate, color, make, like I could zoom in with my bare hands. One of them said if it was kids, they'd probably circle back and the kid would show up. I told him that's not how fear works. He shrugged. They took the footage and left, and I had to drive my route like the day wasn't split open. Kids climbed on laughing, shoving, living. The seat stayed empty. A boy from the back made a quick little gesture like he was holding up a phone, then hid his smile. I gripped the wheel until my fingers hurt. All day, every time I checked my mirror, I saw how easy it was for them. No bruises an adult can point to. No single moment that looks big enough on paper. Just clips, rumors, little threats delivered like jokes. The kid didn't get targeted because he was weak. He got targeted because he went quiet, and the grown-ups called it drama. Police said it was probably teenagers messing around. I drove my route anyway and felt sick the whole time because I realized the rumor wasn't the end. The rumor was the leash. And whoever held it had learned they could pull harder every day and the adults would still call it drama.